Hey, my name is Josh Hageman. Welcome to Fluid Backstage 2014. Today we have Andy Bannister from RZIM Canada, and it is an awesome privilege for us to be able to talk with him and hear his heart about what God is doing, not only in Canada, but across the world. Andy, welcome.
Thanks, Josh. Great to be here.
Yeah, obviously you're a Canadian, so how long have you been in the country?
My wife and I moved here from the UK, you can tell by the accent, 3.5 years ago. So not quite fresh off the boat, but still relatively new.
Welcome to Canada.
Well,
if I was around 3.5 years ago, I would have said it to you personally, but hey, you're gonna have to.
I'm offended that you didn't, but there we are.
Typical Canadian, right? Typical Canadian.
Oh yeah.
Seriously though, what do you do with RZIM, and what's kind of your heart and your passion for that?
Yeah, so RZIM is an evangelistic and apologetics ministry. We're concerned about reaching particularly the thinker. Our kind of catchphrase is that we aim to help the thinker believe and help the believer think. Okay. So I spend my time traveling around Canada, North America, and further afield, speaking to audiences both friendly and hostile, trying to help Christians think through their faith and articulate it more clearly, and then particularly engaging the thinking skeptic and try to show why there are good reasons to think that Christianity is true.
Typically in today's day and age, we see a lot of people getting into the ministry as pastors and doing that whole kind of flock ministry. How did you get involved in evangelism, and how did this all kind of come about?
It was not something I never planned for. Certainly as a young Christian, I never really thought about this. And in fact, so in the way the story happened, in the late 1990s, I was a youth worker, actually working for a group of churches in London, England. You do a little youth ministry yourself, so you know all you need for effective youth ministry is a Bible and a sharp stick. And but then one day I stumbled in accidentally, as it were, into a seminar that was being taught in my church on Islam. And the person who was teaching that seminar was doing street evangelism in London, at a place called Speaker's Corner, where every Sunday afternoon thousands of people gather. And he was using that platform as a place to reach Muslims. So after the seminar, we got chatting, and he said to me, "Why don't you come along next week to Speaker's Corner to see what we do?" So I went along, and it turned out his idea of come and see what we do meant stand on a ladder next to him and preach. Never preached on the street, never done any evangelism or apologetics, never engaged with Muslims, and my new Muslim friends demolished me. They completely wiped me out. And I remember going home, my head spinning, thinking, I need to become a Muslim. They have all of the answers, I have none. But what actually drove me to do was begin reading and studying and digging deep in order to find the answers to their questions. And I went back week in, week out. It was a hard journey. Often those early days, I would often come home feeling, banged over the head, feeling that it had gone badly. But God, I think, used that process to do a number of things, to give me a love of sharing my faith, of evangelism, and also love of Muslims as well. And actually ended up with a PhD in Islam, was where that ended up leading.
Okay, so tell me, make the transition for us, how you ended up from the UK to Canada. How did that work?
Yeah, well, the interesting thing is really my wife is largely in many ways to blame. When she was at Bible college as a young woman, when she was 18 or 19, God called her to Canada. Very clearly put Canada on her heart. Awesome. She doesn't know quite why, it just came very strongly, never anywhere else. We then got married few years after that, and I was the most parochial Brit you could hope to imagine. No intention of leaving the UK, not even on vacation. I was terrified of flying, I was going nowhere. And every time she mentioned Canada, I ignored it, and I hoped it would go away. I thought, if I just ignore this, don't talk about it, don't even mention the C word, she'll forget about it, it has to be wrong. And then at 10 years it took, 10 years of her praying faithfully, and a sense of God saying to her, there will come a day when Andy wants to go to Canada as much as you. And what happened is I got connected to RZIM in the UK, began doing a lot of ministry with them in Oxford, where our UK office is based. And I was sitting in a meeting one day when one of our international team was sharing about what the ministry was doing around the world, and they mentioned the Canada office. I didn't know there was a Canada office at that point, and it was like a laser beam in my brain. I felt God saying, you need to listen to this. And I went home and told my wife. I think her first reaction was to shriek and drop her coffee cup, because it was the first time I'd said anything positive.
Wow.
Well, we got connected with the Canada office, and it took about 3 years. But over those 3 years, God basically turned my parochialism round 180 degrees and gave me a desire to come here.
That's amazing. So you're a family man.
I am indeed. We have a 16-month-old daughter, yeah.
Okay, talk about your daughter. Actually, let's do this.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about the challenges of ministry and family, because you and I both know that ministry a lot of times isn't 9 to 5. It can be kind of a lifestyle type job. How does that relate to family life?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, we were married for 15 years almost before our daughter came along, and parenthood is an amazing privilege. I love my daughter, to pieces. But it does bring that whole question of work-life balance.
Yeah,
And I think any job it does. Ministry brings its own challenges. My job involves a lot of travel. Before Katrina was born, I was often on the road for 140, 150 days a year, which you can sort of carry when you're a couple because your spouse can travel with you, and you can make it all happen. Once you've got a daughter, as we have, then life changes. And I think what it's meant for us is realizing that a very high priority for me, higher than my ministry priority, is my calling to be a father. That God has called me to be a husband and a father, and then to be an evangelist and an apologist. And I think one of the dangerous traps that anyone in ministry can fall into is sacrificing your family on the altar of ministry. It's easy to kid yourself to think, oh yeah, I'm doing this for the kingdom, therefore I can basically cheat my family out of time. And as somebody once pointed this stat out to me, and it really stuck with me. If you think about it, from the age of 0 to the age of 20, you have about 1,000 weekends with a child to go. So use them carefully, because they're a finite resource. And so if you have to do ministry that steals from family time, pay that family time back. So like when I travel on a weekend, I try and make sure I take the time back to spend with my kid. Because at the end of the day, children don't buy into this whole kind of quality time distinction that we use as parents.
That's true.
The only thing a kid is concerned about is quantity time that she's with her dad.
Buddy, that's worth the interview right there. I love it. It's so true. As a family man, and a pastor, I can totally agree with that. So yeah, I love that, and I love that idea about the amount of hours that you've got. If you're depleting from them, put back in.
Pay them back.
I like
right.
that. It's like a bank. Being in Canada for the 3.5 years that you've been here, you probably would have noticed some things about our culture and our context.
Yep.
One of the things that I've noticed within that young adult context is this idea of relative truth.
Yes.
What's true for you might not be true for me, but it's okay if it's true for you. And I know that you teach a lot on that concept. What do you think? What do you think about Canada? Do they fall into that trap of relative truth?
I think so. I think it's very common here. I mean, the interesting thing is it's quite common in Europe as well. So I felt quite prepared for it. We've seen it there as well, and we see it in Canada. I think a number of things drive it here in Canada. Some of those themes are similar to Europe, where I hail from. I think firstly we're a very pluralistic country. Here in Toronto, where we're sitting, you can choose from almost any religion going. Buddhism, Hinduism, Sikhism, Jainism, Judaism. You can even be a Leafs fan. We call that masochism.
Cut that.
You can choose from all of these belief systems. And so I think when we see that amount of choice, that leads many people to end up concluding, well, surely it would be incredibly arrogant of us to say that, my religion is the only right one and all the others are wrong. And so therefore, let's just say they're all okay. Let's just say they're all paths to God. And then I think what's worrying is that thinking has then bled into the church as well, because I think many young Christians, older Christians as well, but young adults particularly, I think feel, if I suggest that Christ is the only way, am I somehow being arrogant? Am I somehow being bigoted? And that fear, because that's the last thing you want to appear to, to be. Canada teaches you, doesn't it, that
we're nice,
we're progressive, we're welcoming, and therefore it must be it's antithetical to those things to claim exclusive truth. Therefore, I don't. That I think is based on a number of mistakes. I think the thing we have to make sure we keep clear in our minds is it's all people who are equal. All ideas are not. And you can love someone dearly as a friend, as a colleague, as a neighbor, and still believe they're wrong on things. One of the things that working with Muslims over the years taught me is I can build really good friendships with my Muslim friends, and they think I'm completely wrong. And you know what? I don't mind that. And they know that I think they're completely wrong, but we can still go out for a curry. The true sign of a friendship is it can embrace difference, and I think we need to hold on to that lesson well.
Okay. Over this next portion of the interview, we're gonna do something a little bit different. It's actually my favorite part of the interview. It's rapid fire. It's where I get to put you on the spot with a little bunch of different, but also gives our viewing audience just a little bit more of a depth and insight on who you are as the man, Andy Bannister. So here we go. You ready?
I'll do my very, very best.
And you're going to do great. You're going to do great. Superman or Spider-Man?
Oh, Superman every time. Blue lycra is the look to go for.
Come on, man. Wendy's or McDonald's?
Oh, McDonald's.
Yes.
The Scottish restaurant, we call it.
Cardigan or T-shirt?
T-shirt.
Hipsters or B-boys?
That's difficult.
Do you know what those ones are?
I'm actually going to say I don't actually know what those words mean. So
Well, just pick one.
hipster sounds more
Sounds
cool.
good. Let's roll with that. In the Olympics, do you prefer single luge or double luge?
Single luge.
Done. Mustache or beard?
Can I say both?
You can say both.
I think
you
both.
can say whatever you want.
You see, I think the whole Movember thing has been overdone. I think we also need the beard to go with it.
Bovember. Hey,
Bovember.
done.
You know,
Done.
like the look
That's
you're
new.
the
Right
look you're
here,
carrying
Andy
there.
Bannister. You just created
Bovember.
that. Bovember.
When you
We'll
hear
see
it,
you do
yeah, when you see Justin
Done.
Bieber tweet that, you know where he got it from.
Oh, man. Okay. Breaking Bad's Walter White or Game of Thrones' Joffrey Baratheon?
Oh, I think Breaking Bad.
Yes, sir. BlackBerry or iPhone?
iPhone, all the way.
Lady Gaga, Taylor Swift?
Who wrote these questions? By a very slim margin, Taylor Swift.
Facebook or Twitter?
Twitter.
Starbucks, Tim Hortons?
Starbucks.
Oh.
Or $4, as I prefer to call
Oh,
it.
yeah, seriously.
That's
ESV
Yeah.
or NLT?
What's the? I don't know what ESV is.
Don't worry about
Oh,
it.
sorry. Yes, Bible versions.
Yeah,
English
Bible
Standard
versions,
Yes,
there
of
you
course.
go.
I was thinking this was a hockey term. That's what threw me. NLT.
NLT, done. Serious question.
Serious question.
Last one.
Yeah.
What is your hope for this generation?
I think generally that people would actually wake up and realise there are serious issues of life that need to be properly considered and weighed carefully. You mentioned Facebook and Twitter and social media earlier. I think one of my fears for this generation is that digital culture is breeding a culture that is very, very shallow. That's 1,000 miles wide and a millimetre deep. And some questions don't respond well to that. So I would pray for depth and clarity and focus for this generation.
Excellent. Andy Bannister, thank you for sharing
Josh, it's a
with
privilege.
the Fluid 2014 team. You're
Thank you,
blessed,
sir.
brother. Awesome.